linguistic landscape is highly diverse and extends far beyond Arabic. Kurdish, Assyrian, and languages spoken by smaller communities, such as Armenian, Aramaic, and Turkmen, also play an important role in Syrian society. Since identities are closely tied to language, addressing linguistic diversity is closely connected to the broader path of social integration and reconciliation. The workshop Language, Identity, and Participation, Rethinking Syria's Education System, explored how multilingualism is managed in different linguistically diverse countries, with the aim of providing insights applicable to the Syrian context.
How can you, on the one hand, at least this is what I believe to be the central question, how can you, on the one hand, support a language everybody's speaking, a language, a common language, a language for everybody, which is not only important because people need to communicate with each other and people need to communicate with the state, but it can also be important in terms of identifying oneself with the state. So how can you, on the one hand, make sure that you have one language everybody's speaking, and on the other hand, you need to find a way to secure minority rights. And securing minority rights means that a person has really the chance to learn a language from the very beginning. It doesn't mean that you can somehow communicate in your language, but it means that you can speak your language, that you can write your language, that you have the vocabulary to discuss, let's say, scientific questions, so that you really know the language on a good level.
The first day began with a brainstorming session in which participants shared their experiences with multilingualism in the Syrian school system. It quickly became apparent that many of the participants had little exposure to Syria's linguistic and ethnic diversity during their own school years. Minority languages were either taught in secret or in private schools, and speaking a language other than Arabic was often met with sanctions or penalties. I used to speak Syriac at home with my family, and when I began primary and middle school, I attended a private school affiliated with the Syria Orthodox Church. We were allowed 1 or 2 hours per week to learn classical Syriac, both written and read. The problem was that many students did not speak Syriac at home, so a single weekly lesson was not enough for them to acquire the language or use it in later life. Its impact on actual language learning was very limited. My experience was different because I was fortunate that my family also spoke Syriac, so I learned it from them and I still use it today. This experience differs from that of other communities in Syria. In primary and middle school, things were like this, but in secondary school, I joined a public school where I clearly noticed the difference, beginning with the separation of girls and boys and extending to other notable experiences. Dr. Zoran Kyle from the University of Passau and Dr. Elizabeth Alber from the URAC Research Institute for Comparative Federalism in Bolzano represented various approaches to managing linguistic diversity in the school system during their lectures. In Canada, for example, only one province, Quebec, is predominantly French-speaking. Nevertheless, schools across the country offer instruction in both English and French. But parents do not have complete freedom in choosing a school. French-speaking children may only attend French language schools, while English-speaking children may only attend English language schools. In Switzerland, the languages used for instruction are determined by the individual cantons. While there are German and French-speaking schools in most cantons, only 2 cantons offer instruction in 3 of Switzerland's 4 official languages: German, French, Italian, and Romansh. In South Tyrol, German language schools serve the German-speaking community, while Italian language schools serve the Italian community. Depending on which schools you are in, the other language is always taught as a foreign language. What does this all mean for Syria? The workshop participants agreed that it is important to have a common language for communication among all Syrians. However, the participants did not immediately assume that this language should be Arabic. Some argued that it was unfair for minorities to be forced to learn the language of the majority. One proposal, inspired by the Indian model, suggested adopting a neutral language, such as English, as the common language for all Syrians. This approach was interesting since it was void of Arab nationalist assumptions. While older, more partisan Syrians often regarded Arabic as Syria's main language for both pragmatic and ideological reasons, this view was not shared by the younger generation. The participants also agreed that Syria's various minority languages should be recognized as official minority languages in the constitution, and that all recognized minority languages should be taught in schools. Additionally, they emphasized the importance of providing students with the opportunity to learn about Syria's linguistic, religious, and ethnic diversity early on in their education. It was crucial to the participants that parents, as well as students, once they reach a certain age, should be allowed to decide which language their school should prioritize. Several participants also raised concerns about the lack of options for Kurdish parents in the autonomous region of northeast Syria, who cannot send their children to Arabic language schools. While the existence of Kurdish language schools is a positive development, the fact that people are forced into a particular school model based on their ethnicity is problematic. This is especially concerning since school graduation diplomas from Kurdish language schools are not recognized by the Syrian government, and thus also not by other countries. As a result, graduating from such schools significantly limits young people's career opportunities. Towards the end of the workshop, Zur and Kyle highlighted two key factors that must be considered in discussions about the implementation of new language models in schools. First, he stressed the importance of evaluating the financial feasibility of such changes. A multilingual school system is far more expensive than a monolingual one, requiring not only multilingual teaching materials, but also well-trained multilingual teachers. Developing these materials and training bilingual educators is both costly and time-consuming. Additionally, creating a multilingual education system has broader administrative implications. Multilingualism would have to be integrated into all aspects of public administration, leading to additional costs, such as ensuring that all citizens can communicate with public authorities in their native language or publishing laws in 2 or more languages. On the other hand, he also pointed out the vital connection between language and identity or belonging.
Generally, in countries like Syria, where we have different language groups and different identity groups, different nationalities, ethnic groups, language is a key marker of identity. So the recognition of language is not simply I can speak my mother tongue, but it is the state is recognizing my identity. And that is fundamentally important for many groups, because not only does the state recognize me as a member of my language community, but more widely me and my group as a whole are recognized as an essential component, an essential element, an essential group that belongs to the state. And so by recognizing my language, you recognize not only my existence, but my direct linkage to the state and my equality also towards the majority community, in this case, the Arabic speakers in Syria.
Taking linguistic diversity in the school system into account is just one of many challenges that are faced by Syria's schools. Another significant issue is defining the role of religion in the curriculum. Developing modern school curricula will also be a challenge, especially in subjects such as politics and history, where different communities are often shaped by conflicting, sometimes contradictory narratives. It is evident that Syria still has a long way to go in terms of establishing an inclusive school system. We believe that our workshop was a small but important step in the right direction.